Good morning, everyone. This is Tractor Man 44. I'm over at my brother's house this morning because every year we kind of have a ritual. We butcher hogs, and then later in the season we butcher beef. This morning we're going to go ahead and put 6 hogs in the cooler. Now we used to kill and scald and gut them ourselves and everything, but we found an old boy that does it, fairly cheap. So for a number of years now we've abandoned the scalding vat. Just because we're getting older, and everything, and we just haven't done it, because it's cheap enough to get done. We went ahead and had this guy prepare us 6 hogs for Saturday, and my brother got up at crack of dawn this morning, head down, and picked them up for us, and he just backed into the shed now, and we're gonna put them in the cooler, let them chill a little bit more till Saturday morning, and then Saturday morning we're gonna make little pieces out of big pieces. There's a little bit of blood, but there's no blood and guts, so to speak. There's no murdering or no killing in this video. It's already done. All we're doing now is beginning the process of processing meat. So take a look at what we got in the back of the truck. Here's 12 halves sitting in here, and what we're going to be doing, we're going to be transporting those by hand up into our cooler. We've got an old refrigerator bed that came off of a wrecked truck that my brother had to do some repair to. Did not have a unit, so we had to buy a new R22 refrigeration, medium temp refrigeration unit, and I installed that way back, well, I don't remember how many years ago. And then he went ahead and put these pipe rack and stuff in here out of 2-inch black iron pipe. It's all scrap off of job sites and everything. And of course we have all the hooks we had, for years and years, from back in the day, our butcher shop back on the farm. And then of course he's made new ones, and he made a lot of stainless steel smaller hooks, for hanging up the livers and the hearts and all that stuff. We'll get to that later. Butcher, we would prepare these a little differently, but whenever we get them from the guy that kills them now, when we bring them home, first thing we got to do is get the leaf lard. That's that I think they call it the visceral fat from inside the stomach cavity. We've got to get the leaf lard out of there, set that off to the side, and hopefully we'll render that and make some good lard for some homemade soap and some good pie crust, And also we got to pull the kidneys out. So right now we got to rip the leaf lard out, which my brother's doing. And then, of course, he's already cut the kidney out of this particular one. That's the very first step. Then we're going to hang that in the cooler. We went ahead and carried them in here, of course, one at a time, or a half at a time. And we got them all hung. Of course, all the leaf lard and the kidneys are all stripped. And, of course, you can see the heads back there in the back. We're getting ready to hang the livers here in just a few minutes. The livers and hearts. So there's 6 halves on this side here, and, of course, 6 halves behind me. Down on the table is the leaf lard. Lay that out flat and try to lay it to where the blood and stuff doesn't drip down, or the blood and the water from washing doesn't drip down on it, because it won't really contaminate your lard, but it'll kind of taint it just a little bit. But up here you can see we've got some parts hanging right here. There's a heart and a liver, and of course behind it's the hog's head, and then of course tongues. There's tongues here, and then more livers and hearts and everything back in behind. And of course you can hear the coolers running up the storm. We keep the cooler set at about 36 degrees, which is the optimum temperature for holding meat for a few days and firming it up to make it much easier to cut. You're gonna watch my son and my nephew carry in another half. This is I think this is our second half that we're getting a pretty good start on right now. Man, it's a nice coat. It is a very nice coat. Like I say, we're just getting a pretty good start on the morning. I think this is in fact the second half here. But the first thing you got to do before you start cutting the pieces up is you got to trim out all the little trimmings and stuff on the inside. You don't want all that stuff hanging, on your good cuts of meat and on your ribs and on your bacons and everything. So you got to trim all that excess out and pass it over to the trimmers, and let the trimmers trim out the sausage, put that in the sausage, and then put, of course, the fat, put that in the fat container. Then you can go about the business of beginning the cuts, like separating the ribs and the shoulders and the pork chops and the tenderloins and all that kind of stuff. Now, right now, what he's doing, he's deciding where to separate to cut the shoulder off of the front portion of this half. And what you do, you count back, or what he does, he counts back like 5 ribs. He cuts between the 5th and the 6th rib, and that makes a good size shoulder for a good percentage of about 3/4 inch or 1 inch pork steaks to come off of that. And it's a little wiggly. We do
do this part of the cutting by hand. We don't use the bandsaw for this. It's just too difficult to transport this whole half to the actual bandsaw. So still do it the old-fashioned way, pretty much by hand. But we used to cut all of them up by hand. Didn't use the bandsaw at all for anything, simply because guess what? We didn't have a bandsaw. You know what I mean? Now, I guess I should clarify that I shouldn't be saying we, simply because I don't do the meat cutting. I'm not a butcher by any stretch of the imagination. My nephew there, he's getting pretty old. He's about
Me.
50 now. He's pretty much taken over the head butchering part,
I have
simply
problems.
because my much older brother's is he's getting up there a little bit. He's up there around 80, and though he still gets around real good, there's no reason to have
Yep,
him
yep,
stress
yep.
out and kill himself over cutting up meat. So Andrew there, he's taken over the reins of that portion of the operation, a number of years back. Of course, we still get direction, quite a lot of direction throughout the course of the day from my older brother. Yeah, he's got to make sure that we're doing it all right. But I cannot take credit for cutting. I am not a meat cutter at all. I'm the sausage man. Now, what he's going to do here, he's going to cut that leg off. Actually, that's a hock. Back in the day when we made head cheese, that along with the jowls and all the head meat, the ears, the snoots, the tails, and all that stuff to go into the 5-foot kettle, and we'll cook that down and make head cheese. Of course, we quit doing that whenever the old man went to the big butcher shop in the sky. So we don't make head cheese anymore. Nobody really cared for it except for them old timers. Now what we're doing, he's got that shoulder cut off, so right now he's separating out and getting ready to remove the ribs and that section of backbone there. And if y'all don't know, that backbone, that becomes your pork chops, and you have a choice to whether or not have tenderloin, roasts or tenderloin themselves, or pork chops. The tenderloin is just pork chops with the bones taken out, and that's made into a nice sized roast. Now, what he's doing here, of course, he's got to cut those ribs, and then he'll be lifting the ribs out of that right hand side. Right hand to him, it's left to us. He'll be lifting those ribs out of there, and then the bacon, surprisingly, is directly underneath that rack of ribs right there. But first things first, we got to get the T-bone sliced tenderloins out, get that on the table, and get that whacked up first. Once those ribs are cut out of there, you can't use a saw the way through the meat. So the nephew there takes the knife and goes ahead and cuts all the way down through everything, to get that out on the table so we can separate the bones, from the loins, or just go ahead and separate the roasts from the pork chops. We'll see what he's going to do here in just a couple of minutes. Well, what he's going to do, he's going to go ahead and lift that rack of ribs out of there. But before he does that, he's going to just go ahead, just like always, and trim the little excesses, the little Irish pennants off of it, so to speak, and toss that over into the trim pile. And if you notice, I got it fast forwarding just a little bit, but what he's doing, he's adjusting his knife, and he's kind of going around those ribs, trying to leave a little bit on the ribs, but the more you leave on the ribs, the less you have on the bacon. So he's actually trying to follow the contour of those ribs, just as close as he can. It just makes for a nicer bacon, much nicer bacon, and everybody prefers that. At least we do, anyway. Prefer the bacon over fat ribs, anyway, because half the time we take the ribs and strip them down and put the meat in the sausage, anyway. So but that's what's happening there. Well, it's time to cut a few pork chops. Now you can get pork chops, in the first half of your of the rack there, and then go ahead and leave a sizable portion of it and bone it and get you a tenderloin out of the same thing. So you can have pork chops and tenderloins. You just can't have them out of the same cut on the pig. You know what I mean? And if you take a look there, you can see there's a lot of fat that's got to be trimmed off of there. Now, if you take a look right here, I'm going to stick my finger right in the middle and show you what becomes a tenderloin if you cut the backbone out of those pork chops. That's going to become a tenderloin roast right there, I'm absolutely sure. You can actually make a bone-in or a bone-out tenderloin roast. And next thing's happening right there, he's trimming the ham up. Now, I asked my brother what he was doing, slicing off pieces of that beautiful tenderloin roast, and he told me he was making boneless pork chops. Now, that's a new one on me. There's the ham already that's prepared, and then we're moving down to the trimming end of the table. And there's my son-in-law and my son. They're working up some sausage, and there's the very first bacon that's ready to go up into the cooler. Now what you're looking at here is a fairly modern power head, Hobart power head for our sausage grinder. Of course, during beef butchering, it's our hamburger grinder, you know. And it's kind of been adapted to accept an old ancient Hobart grinding head. My brother did that. And you can tell we get them started early. That's one of my nieces. I think she's in the 6th grade. And she divides her time between the sausage table here and the wrapping table. She likes to write on the packages and smash out the sausage and everything, you know, in the bags as they go into the vacuum sealer by her grandmother and a couple of the other ladies that just love to hang around with us guys because hey, you know, we're just a bunch of fun guys. Just know how to show a lady a good time on a weekend. You know what I mean? Had to make a quick trip up to the cooler because I had to slice the jowls off of the 6 hog heads so we could grind all the jowls into the sausage instead of making jowl bacon out of them this year. Back down into the basement, I caught my son-in-law preparing some of the pork steaks. Now you got to trim all the fat off of them, and some of them turn out a little gnarly. But you trim all the fat off of them, and then you scrape them because there's the bone dust from passing through the bandsaw that you don't want to put in the package. You don't want to cook that up. So we've got those funny little curly Q scrapers over there to scrape that bone dust off of all the meat before it's packaged. Now, when he gets done lifting the front section of that rib out of there, he's clearing the shoulder to have the pork steaks cut off of it. So that's kind of a labor-intensive little thing he's got to do there, but you know it's got to be done. He's pretty good at it. It only takes him about a minute and a half, believe it or not, to pull that set of bones out of there, and then it's all smooth sailing from there on out. Now take a look at that fat. Whenever those pork chops are coming off of the saw there, that all gets trimmed off to just about a quarter of an inch. And here's a nice close-up, slow motion view of it. You know, our fingers are right there, pretty close to them blades, but it doesn't matter. Now what we're doing, we're getting ready to mix up the seasoning and stuff into our sausage. I like to have 10 pounds batches simply because 10 pounds is just a perfect amount to get a good mix with the seasoning. You don't get a good mix on it. You end up with a lot of a patty or two that's got all the seasoning in it, you know, and then the rest of it doesn't have any flavor at all. So you got to be careful. If you make 15, 20-pound batches, it just takes forever for you, and your hands get tired trying to mix it, you know, and everything. So 10 pounds works fine for me. Um, and there's all kinds of seasonings. We use summer seasonings, summer sausage seasoning, breakfast seasoning, Russian seasoning, everything you can think of. Italian, sweet Italian, hot Italian, um, spicy Italian, virtually every kind of seasoning known to man. We get ours from Pinzi Spices, and they have a great selection. But at any rate, what we're going to do then is we'll go ahead and make this into about a pound and a quarter to a pound and a half wads, and then drop those into quart bags. And you'll see the process here in just a minute. How those then end up going into the vacuum sealers. Now, there's a way to hold those bags to where you don't get the sausage and stuff, you know, kind of down the sides, because if you get the sausage kind of smooshed down the sides, the vacuum sealer doesn't want to seal quite as good, and sometimes, you know, you have to cut it off and reseal it. We've done it enough to where we have very seldom have a failure, but you do have to be just a little bit careful with it, you know. But yeah, we'll get about maybe 8 packages out of a 10-pound batch, something like that. And if not, you know, it might be 9, there might be 7, you know, but it doesn't matter. It all gets eaten by next year. Moving on over to the packaging table, which usually is right at right behind where we stuff the sausage into the bags, just for convenience. But everything gets transported over here, you know, throughout the course of the day. All the pork chops, the tenderloins, all your loin roast, everything. It all ends up on this table, except for the hams, which of course have to be taken to be cured. And of course the bacons too, they go to the same place as the hams. We no longer salt cure our own, simply because, you know, we have them professionally done. Now I say professionally done. Heck, these are just farmers that have full-time jobs doing other things, and they do the butchering and the curing of sausages and hams, shoulders, and all that stuff on the sides. They ain't no different than us, except for they work harder. You know what I mean? I don't know what happened this year, but we turned up a little bit short on help. Normally, there's at least four ladies around the table helping my sister-in-law there on the vacuum sealers, but that doesn't matter. No matter, we got it all done anyway. It was a long day, but we got her done. Hey, what I'm gonna do right now, I'm gonna point at the scale. See, I pointed at the scale. I remember whenever I pulled the tray off of there, I noticed that of course we had it backed on the back side of zero to compensate for the weight of the pan because we do 10 pounds of meat or some of the other ladies like 12-pound batches, but that way we can actually remove the tear of the pan uh, and have an actual weight showing on the scale of how much meat we want to make in a batch. And now it's obviously on to the dreaded portion of the day, cleanup. Everybody's tired, everybody's irritated, been working all day, everybody's feet hurt, so we got to stop and clean everything and power wash everything from stem to stern, and wash everything else in the stainless steel sink. As we're doing all this, we keep transporting the packaged meat back up into the cooler. It sits here and cools the rest of the day. Some people have already taken theirs home. My brother's already got his in his freezers downstairs, and this here's my nephews and myself. This is our portions that got to go to our own houses. And then this following weekend, we'll be slicing bacon and slicing the ham. So it's going to be a busy Sunday morning for sure. It's been a little bit of a longer day than what we anticipated, but we were short more than just a couple of people. So it stretched out a little longer than normal. Plus, ain't none of us getting any younger, you know what I mean? So we got all the big pieces cut into little pieces. We got all the good stuff ground into sausage, and we're just in the process of cleaning everything up right now. So you know what? This is Tractor Man 44, and I am out of here.